Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your daily Leeds United update at 8 p.m. like we always do. And we have got a few things to get into today, of course. First thing we're going to be talking about is the latest on Dan James. There was a concern going into today when it was tweeted out by Adam Pope that there was an injury to Dan James, but it doesn't look like that is quite as serious as first anticipated. So we'll talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk a bit about Dan James and his sort of influence in this Leeds United team at this moment in time, because I don't think we're quite getting the best out of Dan James at this moment, and I don't think we have for a while. And I do actually think there's a potential he's more suited to the Premier League than he is in the Championship, and that will come as a surprise to some people that I'm saying that, but I will explain why. We're also going to talk a bit about Lucas Nmecha, of course, the new signing for Leeds United in the summer. Already scored his first goal against Everton, of course, but he has been speaking to Isaac Johnson of the Leeds Live today. So we will talk about that as well. And of course, naturally, it is a live show, so get your comments in and we'll go through it like we always do at 8 p.m. and talk about the news and see what you guys think and bring you guys into the show like we always do. So it should be a good show today because I'm actually, especially in the Dan James thing, I think there's quite a bit to discuss. And I'm actually quite looking forward to getting into the Dan James situation because, as I said, I don't think we're quite using him as well as we could do. So let's talk about Dan James and see where we're currently at. So it was reported this morning by Adam Pope that several sources suggested that there was an ankle injury for Daniel James. You've probably seen this online anyway, but there was an ankle injury for Dan James, and it looks like, frustratingly, it might even be a long-term one. That was what was reported. However, it has recently been clarified, and the tweet since then has said James is undergoing assessment on an ankle injury, but the good news is it's not expected to be long-term. And that is fantastic news. Not expected to be long-term. Obviously, we know, especially out wide, we're currently sort of struggling with a lack of depth in that certain position. I think that's the current situation where I look at it. I think we probably should have done something probably in the summer transfer window on that right-hand side, but we didn't get it. Obviously, we went for Harry Wilson right at the end of the window as well, but couldn't get that one over the line. So, yeah, I think naturally the lack of depth on the right-hand side is becoming an issue. Hence, we're playing Brendan Aronson on the right-hand side, who is sort of traditionally number 10, as we know. But it's nice that Dan James obviously doesn't look like he's going to be out for a while. Jack says, evening, Scott. Doesn't sound ideal with James. Aronson's going to have to step up. Yeah, potentially, although, as I said, it does say he's not expected to be out long term. We'll also hear as well in Daniel Farke's press conference, this is what Adam Pope said, that in Daniel Farke's press conference, obviously on Thursday, like it always is, we will hear a further update from Daniel Farke. So that's some good news. Anyway, let's talk about what I wanted to talk about with Dan James. And let's sort of understand why I made this outlandish statement that Dan James is more suited to the Premier League than he is in the Championship. There's a number of reasons for this, and I will explain now why this is and why I think actually having Dan James is going to be a huge benefit for Leeds United. The first reason is he's all about tactical imprint and tactical game plans. Now let's look at the opposition first, and then we'll look at how he'll fit into a tactical game plan for Leeds United better in the Championship, in the Premier League, should I say. So in terms of the opposition naturally, when we're playing in the Premier League, are going to the team, the aggressor in the game. They're going to be the team that want to beat Leeds United as opposed to Leeds United wanting to beat them. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of games that we go into in the Premier League, as we know, we'll probably go in as underdogs, as Daniel Farke likes to remind us every single week. But because we're going in as underdogs every game, we're usually the team that will probably accept a draw, like we saw against Bournemouth, like we're probably going to think for Spurs at the weekend. We'll probably take a draw. And because of that, we're not the team progressing the game. And because of that, again, naturally the structure and the way that the opposition will build up against Leeds and how they will play against Leeds will be more on the front foot, more attacking. Naturally getting more bodies forward, creating chances, and also not playing in a low block structure, which of course in the Championship, every single team would basically, especially when they come to Ellen Road, basically every single team last year sit in a low block, never attack and play for a 0-0. That's what Dan James has been playing against in the Championship. In the Premier League, as we know, it's completely different. We're naturally going to be the more defensive team in the game. Naturally, teams are going to come on to us. Naturally, they're going to progress in the game. Naturally, their fullbacks are going to go further forward. Naturally, their lines are going to be much higher, which will naturally give Dan James space in behind to run into, which we know that's a huge benefit of his game. He likes that pace in behind. And then when we look at where Leeds United can benefit from a tactical plan in the Premier League in comparison to the Championship. In the Championship, like we talked about, Leeds are with the aggressor. So Leeds are the one trying to break down a low block. Leeds are the one that are not sat in a sort of deep-lying low block structure, playing on the counter-attack. That is not what we're going to be doing. In the Premier League, again, like we've seen, in every single game, by the way, this season, we have played at some point in every single game so far in a low block, whether that was Everton in the last 15 minutes, whether it was that was the Wolves' second half performance. Every single game at some point we've played in a low block. And that will continue to happen naturally because we want to preserve what we've got. Because we're not trying to completely progress the game at all moments of time. And again, that naturally when you've got a lower line, it pushes the opposition up, which leaves space in behind, again, for Dan James to punish. So on a tactical plan, only tactical, not in terms of quality of player, because that's something we can debate, but in terms of just a tactical plan, naturally the tactical plan will suit Dan James down to the ground, because every single style, in terms of defensive and in terms of an attacking standpoint, will both benefit James because it will leave space in behind. If that's Leeds United doing it by sort of pushing teams on and playing a bit more defensive, or if it does that with the way they're aggressing the game and pushing on, which naturally, it'll be a bit of both. So, as I said, he will be a massive cog for Leeds United, and I don't think we've used him enough. And then we move on to the sort of defensive side of the thing, which actually Jack's just commented in the comments below. Obviously, when we talk about Brendan Aronson and what he can offer, every single time the first thing that comes out of people's mouth is what? His defensive work rate is fantastic. His press is fantastic. His running rate is fantastic. He's got the most pressures in the league. X, Y, Z. A, B, C, D. You get the idea. That is what people say about Brendan Aronson. Dan James, there's this narrative building that Aronson's brilliant and James, that's not his thing as much. Dan James is one of the best pressers at the football club, if not the second best presser behind Brendan Aronson. And the other thing with Dan James that Brendan Aronson doesn't offer, in my opinion, is that when he presses someone, he can actually win the 50-50 duel when he actually competes with the player. Brendan Aronson, a lot of times this year, I've seen him go in for a duel and lose the duel because he's not strong enough and he's not physical enough. Dan James is the opposite. Dan James battles well, and Dan James naturally can win a 50-50 duel. Because a lot of times when Aronson presses them, all he does is force someone to play it left or force someone to play it wide and basically force them to make a decision. Whereas Dan James, when he presses someone, actually could win the ball back for Leeds United and create a chance for Leeds United in a game, which is a massive upgrade on what you'd see from Brendan Aronson, because I don't think he's able to do that. And also Brendan Aronson, when we attack and naturally the game gets stretched. So obviously when you're defending, you want to be, everybody knows you want to be as compact as possible. Stop the spaces, stop their ability to play through the channels. That is a classic case. However, when you're attacking, naturally you want to spread and make the pitch as big as possible. This is how it's always been in football. When you're attacking, pitch massive. When you're defending, pitch really small. This is the principle. What we see from Brendan Aronson quite a bit is when he goes forward and the game gets stretched, naturally as it does when we attack, it takes a while to get back into position and stop their attacking fullback, like we saw with Trafford at the weekend. Dan James, because of his pace, can actually get in and get back to covering in position and sort of, rather than stretching the pitch, squashing the pitch, much better than Brendan Aronson can do. So I actually think, if I'm being totally honest, that Dan James is better off the ball than Brendan Aronson is. So picking Brendan Aronson on the right wing, his attacking work rate isn't as good, but also, in my opinion, his defensive work rate isn't good. Yes, he works really hard, but actually what Dan James can offer us in terms of physical presence, in terms of being able to win a 50-50, and in terms of his pace to get back and cover, that is something that Brendan Aronson cannot offer. And a number of times at the weekend, naturally Brendan Aronson would be quite high on the right-hand side, and he'd have to get back in quickly when the turnover happens and get back to stop Trafford going forward. And he wasn't getting out to him quick enough, which allowed Trafford to whip a number of crosses in. And obviously crosses coming into the box, like even we saw with Juve yesterday. Goals can occur. So for me, Dan James being back fit is vital and so important to this Leeds United team, because actually, as I said at the start, he suits the Premier League more. And he won't get the same amount of goal contributions. That will not happen. But that is because the players and the level of player in the Premier League is so much higher than the Championship. But actually, if you played the Championship level of player with the tactical implement or the tactical styles that naturally would progress in a Premier League and naturally would facilitate a Premier League game, you would see Dan James with even better output than he had in the Championship. The difference is obviously you can't compare the two, because naturally the standard of player is through the roof. So even though the tactical part of the game suits Dan James much more in terms of the way Leeds will set up and the way the opposition will set up, because they're so much better, he won't see the same output they saw in the Championship. But everybody knows that. But I do think we are missing a trick at this moment in time by not playing Dan James. And I know obviously he's currently got injuries and he was struggling with his groin in the most recent game. But when Dan James is back fit, which hopefully isn't too long with what Adam Pope said earlier, for me, he starts straight away on the right-hand side. He starts straight away on the right-hand side. And everyone will talk about sort of Nonto, and I've seen that a lot, about bringing Nonto in on the right-hand side. But actually, I don't think Nonto, for the way we're trying to play and the style we're trying to break down, I actually don't think Nonto suits the right-hand side as much as Dan James, because he doesn't offer that pacing behind that James offers. And actually, Nonto, with the way he plays, for me, suits us trying to break down a low block system in the Championship much more. That's his game. That's what he'll suit. The 1-2s, the tricky 1-2s that he can play, the well IQ to sort of beat a man and operate in tight spaces. That's Nonto's game. James's game is about his pacing behind. That will always be his pace. And the final thing I'll mention, regardless of Dan James, before I finish this PR piece on him, is that another thing that James offers for me over Aronson is his ability to get to that byline and put a ball in for Calvert-Lewin, who is the best header of the ball striker for me in the Premier League at this moment in time. I think he's that good in the air, and you saw that against Bournemouth. He won literally everything. And James is fantastic, hitting the byline and doing the sort of the cross to the back post, the floated cross to the back post from the byline. That is his game. That is what he does. He hits the byline, gets the ball into the box. Brendan Aronson never does that. When was the last time, besides the overhead kick one at the weekend, when was the last time Aronson actually hit the byline and put a cross into the box? Never does it. It isn't his game. He constantly drifts inside, which doesn't suit Calvert-Lewin's game fundamentally. Whereas Dan James getting to the byline and putting the ball into the back post with that floated delivery, hanging it to the back post, is exactly what Calvert-Lewin would breed on, exactly what Calvert-Lewin will want. So if you ask Calvert-Lewin even, who would he rather on the right-hand side, Brendan Aronson or Dan James? I am telling you for a fact, he would say Dan James. And that is the fundamental of why he should play for me. Sebastian says we have to wait till January possibly to do something, I'm afraid. Yeah, I know. That is the January window, I think. When I look at where this team needs, I do think Leeds United will probably try add a right winger. And obviously that will be the case, that we can't do anything until the transfer window. But you've got to deal with what you've got. And hopefully Dan James can be back sooner and sort of feature in this team a lot more. Because I think, as I said, the traits that he can offer this team are absolutely vital and perfect for what Leeds United are looking for on that right-hand side, in my opinion. Absolutely perfect. He's the way he tactically fits into a system that we're going for is exactly right for what we need from Dan James. Fully agree, delivery for a DCL needs to be improved. Exactly. And I think the person to do that would be Dan James on the right-hand side. We played the fourth best team on form. I don't see any reason to be critical of our players. As I've said, I think we'll finish top half, even with Farke as a manager. That's all true, Easy. But even if you think we're going to finish top half, surely we want to be as good as humanly possible. So maybe in your scenario where we finish, say, 10th in the top half, maybe with Dan James on the right side, we finish 8th. So you're always looking to improve no matter where you are. I mean, Slot tried to win the league last year, and he still tried to improve their goal output this summer. That was one of his main fundamentals of what he's trying to do. So every team can get better. No team is ever perfect. So for me, as I said, Dan James just fits a system and a sort of a framework to this Leeds United style and the way they want to play much better than Brendan Aronson. It's not a knock on Aronson. It's not a knock on Aronson. And I think what Aronson can give us at times is really useful. But I do think that, as I said, for me, Dan James just fits this system much more. Like we've seen with DCL up front, where he fits the system more than Joe Pro. Would you go for Bogle on the wing in his absence, just in right back? I wouldn't. I think Bogle's played so well, in my opinion, at right back so far this season, and what he can offer with the sort of link up with the right hand side. Whoever has played on the right hand side, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it at all. I think he's been really strong at right back, and I actually think, if I'm being totally honest, I think our best players are our fullbacks. I think they're our best players, and it's so funny actually, because you remember Leeds United in the Premier League last year, or last time, should I say, not last year, we were in Premier League last year, but last time Leeds United were in the Premier League, I actually thought our worst players were our fullbacks, whereas right now I look at Goodmanson, who I think currently, for his position, is the best at his position over anyone on the whole pitch. And Bogle at right back, I think they're arguably our best two players at this moment in time. Not in terms of the most influential on the team because they're playing fullback, but in terms of what they can offer us in their exact position, I think they're the best. Like, I think overall, Goodmanson's a better left back than Stacky's a midfield player, if that makes sense. Although I do think Dominic Calvert-Lewin is doing a fantastic job up front at this moment in time as well. Daniel Farke will never consider this as an option, I think. Is this in terms of Dan James, or is this in terms of Bogle at right wing. I also think as well, but Bogle, there's this narrative, by the way, and I don't think it's in the Leeds fan base at all. I think it was a bit at the start, but I think that quickly diminished. I think there's this narrative in the Leeds United fan base that Bogle's a pod, or there was a narrative in the Leeds United fan base, and I think there was from the wider public, probably what we heard from Sheffield United fans, that actually Bogle was a poor defensive right back. Completely disagree. I think he's a good defensive right back. I think there's nothing wrong with his defensive work rate at all. I think that was just more salty Sheffield United fans who were disappointed they were losing one of their best players. And I think that's where that narrative came from. The players are getting used to each other, will improve naturally as the group becomes more confident. Yeah, I agree, but I'd be picking. For me, James is the better right winger, so I'm picking my better player. I'm not just sticking with Aronson because of sort of cohesion. I think, by the way, Dan James has played for Leeds United for ages. Like, I know there's obviously new signs that come into the team, but in terms of what he'll be dealing with in terms of Bogle, they linked up perfectly last year. So for me, as I said, I would. I don't fully agree with that. Easy, if I'm being totally honest. I do think we're. And also, by that point, if we get to the January transfer and we bring in a new player to this Leeds United team, do we not pick him? Because we've got used to Aronson on the right side. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. I think there's counter arguments to that. I really do. Sebastian says Bogle. All right, yeah. I don't think Bogle will play at right wing, and I don't think he should either. I think. I actually think, if you're being honest, I think Farke's very happy with the team at this moment in time. I don't think he'll be doing any changes at all. I think, if you want to guess, that will be unless there's any injuries, that will be the team on at the weekend. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And I get why he's doing it, but if James is fit, which he won't be anyway, I would actually play. I would actually play him. Anyway, let's move on to talk about Nmecha and where he's currently at. And I'm just going to make this writing a bit bigger so I actually read the exact quotes for you all. So Nmecha was talking to Isaac Johnson, and there was a sort of an article done today regarding this, and he said a few interesting quotes I think that I would like to discuss. He first of all said, I think I have a lot of self-belief that I'm going to play and score a lot of goals in this league. And I found this an interesting quote because I'm not kind of this opinion. I obviously Nmecha's never going to come out and say, "Oh, I'm not going to score any goals. I'm useless." He was obviously never going to do that. And obviously we want him to come out and say positive things about him. Of course we do. I don't think that's what Daniel Farke sees him as when he looks at Nmecha and thinks what he's going to offer Leeds United. I don't think that's what he sees, in my opinion. I think Daniel Farke's plan for Lucas Nmecha, and this is what I would agree with, by the way, his plan is someone that sort of, in terms of an attributes standpoint, I think he's slightly like, I think he's like DCL, and I think he offers the same attributes. I just don't think he's quite as good as that. But actually, in physicality and holding the ball up, he's not too dissimilar. I think where you see the dissimilar is his ability to run the channels and his pace and his agility. I think them sort of things are stuff that obviously DCL is miles better than that. But in my opinion, in my personal opinion, DCL he's a far superior striker and will play the lion's share of the minutes. And I don't actually expect Nmecha, other than the sort of odd appearance off the bench, to feature that often. I think part of the Nmecha sort of signing was that, look, we need a second choice striker. Perrault's not going to work in the Premier League, which I still don't think he will. We talked about that yesterday. I'd check it out after this if you haven't already. We talked about why Perrault probably won't work in the Premier League. Obviously, we talked about physicality, but loads of other aspects. But I think Nmecha was used as he's a cheap option, could come in, be our second choice striker. And if our main striker that we're looking for this window, because obviously we marked Nmecha first, if our main striker's missing, he can fill in the attributes that we want from a striker at this moment in time on a cheap deal. But now we've got DCL as well, which I think was always the plan to bring two in. I don't see Nmecha getting much game time at all, and I don't see him scoring many goals, if I'm being totally honest. But that will be his job. His job for me will be coming on in the 80th minute when we're hopefully winning the game 2-1 and we're trying to hold on and we can get balls into him long. He can hold it up, win fouls, bring us into play. That will be his game. And as I said, if that's all his role is, which I think it will be, I'm absolutely okay with that because we need that sort of player. Because Calvert-Lewin, especially with his injury record, can't just play 90 after 90 after 90 because what he does up there, Calvert-Lewin, is so influential, but it's also so knackering because it's such hard work to do what he does, holding the ball up constantly, fighting with defenders. That is so difficult to do, and it tears the life out of you. So you can't just play 90 on 90 on 90, and especially when we're going to have midweek games potentially loaded in there as well, DCL will not be able to get through it. I think at this moment in time, one thing that's benefiting Leeds United, because we're giving everything in every game, is the fact that we're not playing midweeks. Like, playing like we did at the weekend and then playing a midweek game is going to be hell. I don't know how we're going to manage that because we put so much into every single game. The likes of Longstaffs and Stacks and Ampadu's, especially in the midfield, and Calvert-Lewin up front, they go through so much work every single game to get the performance levels we're getting. I struggle to see us being able to play a midweek game. And actually, to be honest, when I'm looking right now, and obviously Spurs are playing tonight, I think it's quite good that they're going to be naturally knackered out playing in Bodo Glimp. And then this weekend, we get to be fresh again, having basically a whole weekend, a whole week off before we play again. I think that's going to be massive to the way we play. Aronson is currently crucial to the way we play. DJ isn't. Yeah, no, but Aronson is currently in the team. Dan James isn't. But do you not, in terms of what bit do you disagree with, Easy? Because so far, I admit you've said that we want continuity in the team, and this is a sort of winning formula at the moment. I know it's not been winning loads of games, but it's a working formula for sure. Do you not think that James does offer the pacing behind and offers more of a threat in transition than Aronson? Do you not think that he's better defensively and he can win more duels than Aronson can do? I'm just interested why, other than continuity, why you wouldn't think that Aronson, that James doesn't offer more in terms of attributes that would suit this team more than Aronson does. That would interest me. Anyway, so that's the first quote he said. The second quote he said, which I thought was interesting, he's talking about the stadium and sort of Leeds United at this moment in time. He said, when the stadium erupted, I lost my mind. I have not experienced a fan base like this before. And I think this is where we talk about sort of Ellen Road and the positives that we actually seen from Ellen Road. Of course, we've still not been beaten at home this year. We've only conceded, I believe, 1 goal at home as well, or 2 goals, obviously, with the 2 goals against Bournemouth. We were clean sheeting in both the other 2 games against Newcastle and against Everton. And we haven't been beaten there for something like 23 games now. And Ellen Road, I know if you listen to any Match of the Day comment or any pundit who basically wants to make an off comment about Leeds, they'll say, well, their home form is the most important thing to staying up. And that is true. And they are right. I mean, they say it and that's all they say. Like, me and brother watching Match of the Day at the weekend thinking, oh, I wonder what they're going to say about Leeds. They've played really well. This has happened. Longstaff had a really good game. And it was the home support's going to be massive and the home form's going to be brilliant. And that was it. But I do think it's important to talk about the home form and the benefit that Ellen Road is going to offer this Leeds United team at this moment in time, because we have got one of the most hostile grounds in the country. Like, we can talk about Burnley's home form, and you can even talk about Sunderland's home form. Neither of them grounds are anything like Ellen Road. It's a completely unique experience, hence what Nmecha is saying. And I do think that the home form that we can present, and if we can keep up the home spot that we're offering at this moment in time, and when we play against Spurs at the weekend, it'll be exactly the same because we know what the crowd's like. It's brilliant. I do think we can beat anybody at home. I generally do. I think Liverpool, obviously, is going to be tricky. I think Arsenal is going to be very tricky as well, because I think we've got an issue slightly at the moment from conceding at set pieces. Like, we've got conceded 9 goals and 6 of them have been set pieces, and we know Arsenal are unbelievable at set pieces. I think that could be an issue. And they've already scored 2 against this season as well. 3 if you include the penalty, which of course is a set piece. So I think they're going to be an issue. And Liverpool and Arsenal, I think, could be a huge issue for Leeds. Out of that, I think we can give anybody a game at home. I really do. I like the fact that obviously the crowd's on top of it. And I think when we look at the stadium development, we've got to make sure we keep that in the Leeds United core at the moment. That the heart of the stadium and the passion in the stadium stays exactly the same, because it does get you points. Like Ellen Road, that crowd will win us points naturally on its own, because players will be intimidated coming to Ellen Road, because it will boost the players naturally like it does. Like, I think people like Sean Longstaff completely thrive under an Ellen Road atmosphere. And I look at sort of the rest of the season. As I said, I think every game we should be looking at picking up points at home to Ellen Road. And I think we can go all season with losing maybe 5 games at home, which would be absolutely fantastic return. It really would, because we've got we play 19 games at home, 19 games away. I don't know. I think we're in a really good spot at home, and I think that's something that is going to be massive for Leeds United naturally. And I think it's something we've got to target. I think any home game we're going to have to target points in for sure. Soon Pro will get his chance. He obviously has to prove himself, but he has the right mentality. Shame Leeds fans who've doubted him. It's not about doubting him. It's about looking at what attributes a striker requires to play in this Leeds United team at this moment in time. So I had a comment on my video at the weekend saying that Dominic Calvert-Lewin missed 3 chances that Pro would have scored. Fine, but would Pro even been in that chance? So, for example, the first goal, the ball goes through, and of course DCL takes a shot, bad shot in my opinion, should have done better with it. It's a poor shot. But does Pro make that run? Does Pro have the pace to get in behind and get the chance to have a shot there? I don't think he does. Can Pro hold the ball up like DCL can do? I don't think he can. Does Pro have the nous to win fouls like we see from Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Don't think he can. Does he run the channels well? No, he doesn't. And these are the attributes that we need in the Leeds United striker. It's not all about just finishing. Finishing is part of being a striker, but it hasn't been the only part of a striker for the last 20 odd years. You've got to give more as a striker. And I look at sort of what Pro gives this Leeds United team outside of just being a finishing ability, and there's nothing there. That's it. He's a great finisher. And if you give him a penalty, I'd take him over anyone taking a penalty in this Leeds United team at this moment in time, comfortably. And if you're taking a free shot on the penalty spot or outside the box, who would I want on it? Pro all day, without a fail. But besides that, I just don't see anything else that he offers us, in my opinion. Tottenham still 0-0. Liverpool behind against the club in Turkey by Osimhen penalty. By the way, Paxau's already scored 2 times for Olympique Marseille. Let's hope Tottenham will still feel their legs. Let's start hungry. Yeah, I know. And the other thing with Tottenham as well is they're playing away at Bodo Glimt. It's an awful pitch to play on Bodo Glimt. Really small. I think it's an AstroTurf pitch as well, which is never as good for your knees and stuff like that, I don't believe as well. So that it's perfect. That is a perfect scenario. The only issue is that I wish it was on Wednesday to get that extra day. But yeah, fantastic. This is something Daniel Farke mentioned, like when we played Arsenal, we played Newcastle. It's a shame we played them when they didn't have a midweek game. But we are playing Spurs when they've got a midweek game, which is fantastic. Pro's a good lad, but he's not a Premier League player. He knows that after the Arsenal game. Yeah, I think Pro probably will at some point accept he probably needs to move on, personally. There were copious amounts of opportunities to win. We need to make sure they count. Things to work on. Is this in terms of the Bournemouth game? Because if it is, I do agree. I said about the Bournemouth game sort of in match reaction. Because I started match reaction being on the defensive route in terms of like, oh yeah, but good point or whatever. And you get to the end of it and you're like, realistically, it's a daft goal that we concede for the first goal. It's totally daft. I mean, Aronson in the wall, if you can't stop it all, is ridiculous. I mean, conceding a goal like that in the Premier League is just so stupid. So that was a stupid goal to concede. The second goal is a daft set piece as well, where Ampadu just drops way too far, plays everybody onside, and then they score from that. And we don't win the initial header, and Senesi's got basically a free header to knock it back across for Cooper, who scored. So they're 2 stupid goals to concede. So yeah, and we obviously had the Dominic Calvert-Lewin chances, all 3 of them, which in my opinion, at least one of them should have ended up in the back of the net, especially at Premier League level. So there was ample amounts of ways to win against Bournemouth at the weekend. The fact we didn't win that was concerning, if I'm being honest. Although still, we're early in the season to the point where I'm hoping that if you can repeat that level of performance, we should see a better end result come the end of the season, I'm hoping. My only issue, and I've talked about this a number of times, is that if Leeds are going to stay up this year, which I think at the moment in time I've got Leeds United out of the relegation zone, who are the 3 that are going down? That is my only worry. That is my only concern. If Sheffield United had come up instead of Sunderland, I'd be way more confident because I'd go Sheffield United, Burnley, Wolves. My only thing is, who's that 3rd team? I think Burnley and Wolves, yes. Who is your 3rd team? And if you are watching live right now, who is your 3rd team that go down? As the season progresses, the shape of the team will change. It's a mistake to think we have DCL nodding balls down all season. The Premier League is far too good for that to work. I get what you're saying, Easy. I actually agree with that. But the only thing I would say is, because DCL's so dominant in the way he plays up front and he's so powerful up front, it's not a thing that you can just tactically tweak. The centre-backs he's playing against either lose that battle or they win them. They can't really do a tactical plan to stop DCL winning headers against smaller centre-halves. They can't, and who have got a worse jump than DCL. You can't do a tactical plan for that, really. That is what it is. They either win the battle against DCL or they don't. And you actually saw at the weekend with DCL, he won about the first 3 or 4 that went up to him. And actually, after a while, Senesi and Diakite just dropped off him, just allowed him to take the ball unmarked. And they thought, we'll just stick in position and let one of the midfielders try to tackle him instead. I only get to see the highlights over here. I only get to see highlights over here, so limited. However, from what I've seen, we can mix with the best. I don't care who wins, who goes down, as long as it's not us. I do agree. I couldn't give a toss. I know people talk about sort of, and I've even mentioned this channel as well, oh, it'd be nice if the newly promoted lads all stay up. I don't really care. If I'm being honest, don't really care if Sunderland go down. Don't really care if Burnley go down. As long as it's not Leeds, I couldn't give a toss. If I my absolute pick, I'd love Man United to go down, but I think that's probably slightly unrealistic, although they have started terribly. And if you look at Man United at this moment in time, which is quite funny, their only 2 wins have come against Chelsea, who had a man sent off on the 3rd minute of the game. So they beat a team at home, well done, but they had a man sent off after the 3rd minute of the game when Robert Sanchez got sent off. And they beat Burnley in the 95th minute from a penalty. So, it's I think they are terrible at this moment in time. Absolutely terrible. And I think Amorim will get sacked and they will improve, but it is quite funny. Who cares who goes down? We aren't, and that's all that counts. I hope so, Easy. That is where we can definitely agree. And also, that's probably where I will finish the show. I think there was more quotes, actually, but I don't think that any of them were that interesting, to be honest. So I picked out 2 from the Nmecha conversation. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video or the stream as always. If you do want to watch live on these, by the way, because I know a lot of you watch after the math, but if you do want to watch live, it's always 8 p.m. every single day. So yeah, be there at 8 p.m. if you want to get your comments in live. Obviously, if you can't and you're watching afterwards, absolutely fine. Leave your comments in though still, and I'll respond to every single comment like I always do. So yeah, if you want to do that, that is absolutely fine. And yeah, if you could drop a like and subscribe on top of that, that would be brilliant, because I'm such a small channel at the moment that every single like is a massive boost for the channel, naturally, because there's not as many of people here. Hopefully the community will start to grow, but I obviously appreciate you all sticking around at this moment in time as well. Definitely the hardcore fans for sure. So yeah, but thanks all for watching as always, and I will see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. again for some more Legion